All right, we're about to take a little trip around the world, but forget the famous landmarks and museums. This is a field guide to the things that go bump in the night. We're talking about a global bestiary of creatures so out there, so terrifying, they make your average vampire look like, well, a totally normal neighbor.
So I want you to think for a second, what's the scariest monster you can name? Is it a zombie, a werewolf, maybe a ghost clanking some chains? You know, they're the classics, right? The household names of horror that we all grew up with. They're so familiar, they're almost kind of cozy in how scary they are.
Well, get ready to update that list because we're about to dig into some global folklore that'll unearth creatures you have probably never, ever heard of. Seriously, your personal top 10 list of terrors is going to need a complete overhaul.
Okay, first up on our world tour of terror, we're starting in the East, where some ancient tales have created some truly unforgettable nightmares. And our first stop? Southeast Asia, to meet the Krasu. Now, the Krasu is a spirit born from a pretty nasty curse. During the day, she might just look like a totally normal woman, maybe a little tired. But at night, she becomes something entirely. Okay, so this is where it gets absolutely wild. It's the sheer physical horror of this thing that sets the Krasu apart. We're not just talking about a floating head. No. It's the head of a young woman with her entire set of internal organs. We're talking heart, lungs, stomach, all of it, just dangling beneath her as she flies through the night. And what does she do? She feeds on blood. And what's really horrifying is that she's said to specifically target pregnant women and their unborn babies.
So how do you deal with something like that? Well, believe it or not, she's not invincible. See, that detached body of hers, it's like her anchor to our world. If you can find it and, hide it or destroy it before she gets back at sunrise, it's game over for her. Another slightly more practical tactic, surround your house with spiky fences or thorny plants. The idea is that her trailing organs will get all tangled up, trapping her until the sun comes up to finish the job.
Okay, look at this number. 30 feet. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's like the height of a 3-story building. What in the world could possibly be 30 feet tall? For that, we're going to head over to Japan to meet the Gashadokuro. Now, the name literally means starving skeleton, which is spooky enough. But given its size, I kind of love the nickname from our source material, the giant rattling rascal. It sounds almost fun, doesn't it? And this thing, it's a perfect example of how folklore gives a body to tragedy. The Gashadokuro is literally made from the bones of hundreds of soldiers who were left to die on a battlefield without any proper burial rites. All of their collective anger and hatred, it fuses together to create this massive, silent skeleton that just roams the countryside, grabbing and, well, eating any person it finds. But here's the cruelest part, right? It's a 30-foot-tall skeleton. You'd think you'd hear it coming from a mile away. Nope. It moves almost completely silently.
All right, so from the haunted battlefields of Japan, our journey now takes us all the way across the globe to the wind-swept islands of Scotland, where a totally different kind of terror is waiting for us.
So here we are in the Orkney Islands, way up in the north of Scotland, and this place is home to a creature that's considered one of the most evil, most malevolent demons in all of their folklore. Its name is the Nuckalevee, and it is just pure, unfiltered bad news. I want you to really try and picture this, okay? It's a demon from the sea, and it looks kind of like a horse, but the torso of a man is fused onto its back. And the whole thing, the man part, the horse part, has no skin at all. You're just seeing raw muscle and glistening tendons. It's got these super long ape-like arms that can actually reach the ground, and one single massive red eye that just burns like a fire. It is literally pure nightmare fuel. And what does this thing do? Well, its only motivation seems to be pure malice. It's a bringer of plague and blight. People believed its breath alone could wilt crops and make livestock sick. For centuries, anytime there was a drought or a plague or a famine on the islands, you can bet the Nuckalevee got the blame. So how on earth do you fight something that horrible? The short answer is, you don't. It's considered pretty much unbeatable. But it has one very specific, almost ridiculously simple weakness. It cannot cross fresh, running water. So if one of these things is chasing you, just find a stream and hop over it. And, while the folklore doesn't officially say this, our source points out that for a creature with no skin, a handful of salt and lemon juice would probably really ruin its day. Okay, take a deep breath. We've had dangling organs, we've had giant skeletons, skinless horsemen, but if you think it can't get any weirder, oh, you are sorely mistaken. Our next stop features a creature with a truly unique and horrifying nighttime routine.
All right, for the final leg of our tour, we are crossing the Atlantic over to the Americas, where, you guessed it, the folklore is just as rich and the monsters are just as terrifying. First up, let's head to the Caribbean to meet the Sukuyant. Now, during the day, she seems like just a harmless, quiet old woman living on her own. But when that sun goes down, her transformation is the stuff of absolute nightmares.
You heard that right. She literally takes off her human skin, her mortal flesh jacket, and just sets it aside. Then she transforms into a ball of fire. In this form, she can fly through the night sky, and she can slip through the tiniest little cracks in a house to get to her victims and drink their blood.
But just like a lot of these folkloric monsters, she has a super bizarre compulsion. If you throw a handful of rice on the ground in front of her, she is magically forced to stop everything and count every single grain. This obviously buys you some time, enough time to find her discarded skin and douse it with salt. If you do that, she can't put it back on, and when the morning sun comes up, she's destroyed.
Okay, our last stop takes us to Central America, where unfaithful men are taught let's say, a terrifying lesson by a creature called the Siguanaba. Now, at first, she appears as this vision of absolute beauty, a stunning woman with long hair bathing all alone in a river at night. You can see where this is going. But when a guy gets close, lured in by her beauty, she turns to show him her true face, which happens to be the rotting skull of a horse. Yeah. The shock alone is often enough to drive a man insane, or even kill him from fright right there on the spot. As our source material so dryly puts it, a deal breaker to most men.
So, wow, we've met a flying head with trailing organs, a giant silent skeleton, a skinless horse demon, and women who can either take their skin off like a coat or have the face of a horse. It's been a wild ride. But you gotta ask the question, why? Why do we do this?
Well, one really interesting thread you might have noticed is that for every one of these complex, horrifying monsters, there's often a strangely simple, almost bizarre weakness, right? The Krasue can be stopped by a thorny bush. The mighty, plague-spreading Knuckleavee is foiled by a tiny creek. The Sukuyant is completely defeated by a handful of rice. And apparently there's a German sleep paralysis demon called the Alp that you can trick just by promising it a cup of coffee in the morning. Seriously. It really seems to be this universal human thing, doesn't it? To create stories about what's in the dark, to give a face to our deepest fears, of death, of sickness, of the great unknown. These creatures might sound completely alien and bizarre, but the fears they represent, those are things we all share. So, if every single culture on Earth looks into the shadows and sees a monster staring back, what does that really say about us? What does it say about the human imagination?